to introduce myself. I'm an undergraduate student at LSE in my third year, and my project is on inequality and financial insecurity amongst undergraduates at LSE. And this project came about because some of these issues were ones that I experienced myself at university, and I often felt as if they weren't really met by the university or expressed or commonly acknowledged. So I thought this would be really useful to talk to other people and do some research and try and change things. So if I can just introduce my research questions. So I had a few main things that I wanted to uncover. The first thing was, what are the kind of financial issues that affect people at undergraduate level at LSE? Secondly, how does it impact their experience at LSE? Thirdly, has the response from the university been sufficient? And finally, what needs to change? And just briefly on my methods, I conducted 1-hour interviews with candidates and analyzed the common themes and issues and tied this to the literature, and then contributed to my findings through that. So first, just briefly, a few stats on what I found out about what the kind of issues people were dealing with at university. The first was 80% of people struggle to meet rent and basic needs. So that's like food and things like that. The same proportion received no financial support from their parents at all. 2/3 loaned money to their parents at least once during their undergraduate degree, some people more than that. Half of students regularly used an overdraft, with some reaching the max amount. One person I spoke to graduated about £1,500 in debt through an overdraft, and almost all candidates work part-time. Now, secondly, impact. This was the really interesting section for me. And this was fascinating because my hypothesis was that financial insecurity was a pervasive, all-affecting thing which affected every area of people's lives at uni. And this was confirmed by speaking to people. So a lot of people said their mental health was affected. They experienced things like depression, anxiety. 80% of interviewees said their academics suffered as a result of their finances. The same proportion reported that their social life was negatively affected. All candidates claimed that their career choices had been affected by their finances. Many people felt pressured to take higher paying jobs over pursuing their own interest. And all students said that their financial situation became worse during the pandemic. And this was quite interesting because in the literature, only about half of UK students expressed that, but all of the people I spoke to said that it was worse during the pandemic. Now, moving on, this is where I asked candidates what they thought about what LSE had done to provide for them. A majority of people said they were satisfied with the financial provision made by LSE. This also reflected my own experience, and this was especially so during the pandemic. So this is things like bursaries, the hardship fund, other sources of support that were available for students at LSE. However, the problem was that a number of students said that they were treated poorly by students and staff at some point as a result of their financial situation. All students said that LSE's provisions were very poorly explained and signposted. They didn't really understand how lots of things worked, how you applied, what was awarded, and so on. And multiple students said that they were discouraged from seeking some forms of financial support due to poor transparency and privacy concerns. So, sort of synthesizing all of those findings, well, what needs to change? Now, the number one thing is increasing signposting and transparency. So signposting, people need to know more about what's available earlier on in their degree, and it needs to not just be an email that they're sent at the beginning, which is what happens now, but things need to be explained in more full detail, and things need to be more transparent as well. The second thing is equipping staff to inform students and explain these provisions. So this is things like academic mentors, but also class teachers. So one student I spoke to expressed that they'd been in trouble in second year with their finances, and their academic mentor was actually able to help them, point them towards a source of support, which was unusual. It's not the norm, but they said they found it really helpful. Prioritizing privacy and avoiding unfair treatment during applications for financial support. Lots of people I spoke to had privacy concerns. They worried, so for example, with the hardship fund, you have to flag any spends on your bank balance over £100 before you're awarded support. People felt that this was an unfair intrusion into privacy. So those are my main suggestions. A few other ones would be creating a social fund to meet the social exclusion people felt, and extending the accommodation bursary beyond first year as well. Lots of people who used the bursary, they all said that it's fantastic to have in first year, but in second and third year, they began to run into problems with rent because it just it vanished after first year. So those are my main findings, but I also wanted to just close on a final note on class discrimination. And this is really relevant, especially considering the previous project. So in my interviews, I found that the majority of people who I interviewed were working class, and all of them reported having experienced discrimination as a result of their class background. Now, obviously, there's quite a lot of overlap between financial insecurity and people who are from that background. And I thought I should just flag this. It's technically not within the purview of my research, and so I didn't make any suggestions. But I think, especially considering the other projects, I thought it would be really good to just make a note of it here. Yeah, but that's everything. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to answering your questions.